I think most of our members know Holly Miller, and she brought her own group of friends to support her as well today. So let's give her a welcome.
Do you want a handout?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to be your speaker. As soon as I was asked, I begged for more time. Because I didn't want this to just be, I don't want this opportunity to just be, this is what I am, this is what I do, and I like things to be a learning opportunity and to kind of share a message. And I'm going to try to do that, just touch the surface. These are big, heavy topics that I deal with, so we're not going to cover grief in 5 minutes. But maybe we'll spark a little bit of interest, and I am very open to doing one-on-ones and having other conversations. Let's meet for lunch, or I hear something and we can always talk more. So if you want to get out your handout, everybody had a handout by their plate. And over the next 8 hours, we're going to go through, I wish, but we're just going to turn the lights off on me in 20 minutes. So I'm going to talk faster than I would like to, especially because I want to get to telling a life story. And of course, for those, I would be more diligent and slow with my words. But I'm going to talk a little fast today just so I can get my message across. You can tell I was a teacher at some point in my life. I have the props and the visuals and the handouts. If only I could have laminated something today, then it would have been great. But it took a lifetime to get here, and there were twists and turns of my life that brought me to being a funeral celebrant. This was not my trajectory that I thought. I was born and raised in Kenosha. I went to school for other things, I had other plans, but my favorite people kept passing on. And as these things happen in your life, it kind of just seems like a lot of crap. A lot of crap is happening. But if you start to pay attention to it, where is this leading you? If you start to listen and pay attention, you're being led to right where you're supposed to be. And I started doing funerals for my family because I felt very compelled to tell their story. And then my ex-husband, my son's dad, passed away 3 years ago. And I had to do his service. I did his whole funeral. Because I had to do it for me, I had to do it for my son. We needed that experience. But what I wasn't expecting was how many other people were going to be impacted by that. And the feedback I got, and how that other people needed that experience too. And I was so blown away. I'm like, it was about me and him. But it just started to dawn on me that I can help people. I can do this. Other people need this experience, and I can help them. So I trained, I became a certified funeral celebrant, and started doing funerals. And how did the wedding thing come about? One of the ladies that kind of sold me a lot to her families at the cemetery dutifully stood in back of the chapel countless times and cried as I was doing these celebration of life services. And I knew if Jess was crying that I was on point. And after one of the services, she came up to me and she was like, I'm getting married. Will you do my wedding? I'm like, girl, what kind of wedding do you want to have? Because I make people cry for a living. And she was like, no, you bring all the love and all the feels, and that's what I want. And I was not convinced at first. It took me a while to wrap my head around that. But I'm so glad I did, and it makes perfect sense that I can help families with these celebrations of love and celebrations of life that kind of get lost. We don't pay as much attention to these. They're really cookie cutter and generic, and we can do better than that. And when families don't live around here, they don't know who to turn to. Or if they don't have a relationship with a certain pastor or a certain church, they don't know who to turn to. And these major life events get lost. But I can help. So moving on really quickly. Number 2, legacy. How do you want to be remembered? When I start planning a service with a family, I often start with What songs do you need to hear that day? What do you want to hear? What kind of captures that person? And it's so interesting, the responses, and it really sets the tone for the service. So, and I'm not going to call on people when I ask questions. You can just write down on your worksheet, and just to save time. But what's your song? What do you think your song is that captures you? What do you think other people are going to pick for you? And that's the thing. So unless you pre-plan and talk about it, or you are so much living that, what do you think other people are going to pick? I was working with a gentleman who was planning for his grandma, and he's like, we got to play Rock of Ages. And I'm like, all right, go Granny. Cool. So we're talking like Def Leppard, Rock of Ages? He's like, oh no, there's a Lutheran hymn, Rock of Ages. I'm like, okay, glad I clarified. But I've played, of course, Sinatra and Patsy Cline and the Beatles and Black Sabbath and Slaughter, whatever makes sense for that person. And actually the one that we did, Black Sabbath and Slaughter, it was so much more of a religious service than maybe you'd think. It was actually gorgeous. And it made sense for that person and that family. So what's your song, and how is it telling your story? Then number 3, what's your motto? And how is that telling your story? You can write that down. And it's one thing to say it and, post it on your social media and your hashtag and all your hashtags, I'm living my best life and stuff, but are you? Are you taking steps that other people think that? What are you actually doing? And, because you're writing your legacy every day. So I've made a lot of changes in the past few years of my life after my son lost his dad. And my first thought wasn't what I want my story to be. My thought was what I did not want my son's story to be. I did not want my son's story to be, my dad died and my mom worked all the time. That was not going to be my son's story. For whatever parts of that I could possibly control, that's how our story started to change. And you take purposeful steps to change your life then. And it's not easy. And it takes daily conscious redirection to actually live that life that you want to be living. So to say, I want to create a life that I don't need a vacation from, that's a great meme, and that's a great thing to post, but what are we doing then to actually make that happen? And my son is my constant redirection for what I want his story to be, and what I, in turn, am creating our story. And it's not easy. So, I gave up that 9 to 5, and there are days when that 9 to 5 looks pretty sweet. Like that guaranteed paycheck and that, clock out and be done. But that's not getting me to where I want to be. And so sometimes it's easy to think like, oh, I should just go do that. But it's not the life and the story I want to be living. So yeah, it means I'm sitting at my desk at 10 o'clock at night, but I'm home when my son gets off the bus at 2:30, and he likes that. And I get to take him to his activities and do things that I would have had to be asking other people to do that. So what's your story, and how are you making that happen? So number 4, the lessons. I'd be doing my job wrong if I wasn't learning from this every day. From 3 days old to 103 years, there is always something to learn from someone's life. And what are the things you've learned from who's gone before you? And you can write some things down on your paper on number 4. Maybe we've learned, someone taught us how to cook or how to build something. They taught us how to speak a different language, those different skills. But also, what have you learned from these other people, too, about how they live their life? Did they pass at the end and all good, they used their time and everything was good, or were they like, oh, I should have been something else, I should have. Those kind of things. What are we learning from the people that have gone before us and what matters. So there's always a lesson. And number 5, one four-letter word, the one thing across the board that everyone wants. And I've helped families through losses of babies and toddlers, to parents losing adult children, to children losing parents, sudden losses, many sudden losses, overdoses, suicides, accidents, to those blessed with old age and peaceful passings. The one thing everyone wants more of.
Time.
Starts with T, ends with I'm. Time. Write that in big letters on there. Time. And we're surprised. We're so caught off guard by our mortality. We're surprised when there's no more time with someone. And our most fervent wish will always be to have had more time. So there's the lesson there. To not let the routine of life get in the way of living. We need to be present in our own lives. What if this is the last luncheon? Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. What if this is the last phone call? The last good night? Eat dessert first. Yes, we're switching that for the next meeting. Yes. But we need to be present and mindful. And right after a loss, people are. They, seize the moment and live like you're dying, and we're going to visit family and that. But do we make it last? Do we make those purposeful changes in our lives to then actually live how we want to? Because I tell you, I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, very intentionally, and it's hard. It's hard to every day to keep purposefully living the way you're really wanting to. You got to be conscious about it and make those shifts. So the bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. Michael Altshuler. But with time, I've seen it across the board, but one couple, and they were in their 90s, a brother and sister, never married, lived together their entire lives on the family farm. And the older brother passed, and the sister, I thought she was going to crawl in that casket with him. Over 90 years with her big brother, and there still wasn't enough time. That's all it comes down to. Big letters, time. Okay, moving on, number 6, we have the worlds, the little globes. And the one world is all jam-packed full of all these shoulds. Should. We should be on one more committee. We should go to one more meeting. Our kids should be in this and should. But what if we take away all those shoulds? What if we stop shoulding and look at how free our little world is? And in the empty one, write things that you want to put in your world. What do you want to put in there? I want to learn how to cook. I want to start running again. I want to do this. Then go do it. Because there's this R word that is really big and heavy. And it's called regret. And it's a big burden. And there's some regret stories, but I'm going to pass on those right now to just keep on moving here. So fill your world with what you want to be doing. Back to that intention. Make it purposeful. And make it happy. We're learning the lessons from this. So number 7, we put Bandaids on our owies. What's a really big owie is grief. And we're all on a grief journey. We're all on some type of grief journey. We've lost a person, a pet, a job, an opportunity, a dream. We've all lost something. And either we deal with it or we don't. Either we heal it or we don't. And oftentimes we don't, and we put a Band-Aid over it, and then there's 2 different ways that goes. One, you get really hardened, kind of callous, hardened to the world, and we know those people, they're angry at the world, but you peel back some layers, and they just put their dog down today. Or they grew up without a parent, or they lost something. There's layers there. If they're not hardened, then they're fake. This is fine. Everything's fine. Everything's so good, right? We're fake about it. And I'm not picking on those things. That's how we're kind of coping and dealing with it. But be aware of what's under your Band-Aid. So in that blank part in the middle of your Band-Aid, write some things in there. What's under there? You lost somebody, you lost something. I'm grieving people. I'm grieving some of the ways I thought my life was gonna go. I'm grieving my 22-inch waistline and the ability to do jumping jacks without wetting myself. Motherhood's a gift, but you lose some things in the process. And you grieve a little bit, And then we put Band-Aids over these, or we deal with them. So if we don't heal what cut us, we bleed on people that didn't hurt us. They're the ones that, then we're snippy at the gas station attendant, or we're flipping people off in traffic, or we're hurting people that they're not the ones that cut us. We need to heal some of our things with grief. And there's so much about grief, I could talk about it like all day. And there's good stories and stuff, but the big lesson there is you truly never know what other people are going through. So be kind. Be kind and help people peel back some of those layers, and you're going to learn about people and help them in the process, and then some beautiful things can happen. And then it all comes down to story time. It all comes down to stories, and we live on in memories. And, someone else is going to be living in your home and driving your car and wearing your good jewelry and using your dishes. So use the good dishes. Use the good china. What are you saving it for? It's our everyday stuff in my house. What am I saving it for? And even if your name's on the sides of buildings and there's a monument to you in the park, it still comes down to stories. What's your song? What's your motto? What are you doing each day to live that? Because that's your legacy. You're building your legacy every day. And I love the stories. I love capturing these for families. And am I getting the hook? Oh no, I wanted to tell a story. I thought I was going to have a little more time than this. I don't know if I'm going to get to it in the next couple of minutes here. But I wanted to tell you about Frank. And that's what I set up here. And out of all the stories, I chose Frank because I feel like we could relate to him. Some way you kind of know someone about Frank, and who's like Frank. I don't know if I can do this one time. But anyway, we started with a song. His song was in color. Jamie Johnson in color. Talks about the black and white pictures. And it's great, pictures of the war and the farm and stuff, but you should have seen it in color. So it was different. We had a prayer, we had this little memorial ended with military honors. And I guess I won't, I don't know. I'm all thrown off my game. Darlene's saying.
Do it. Story.
Should I?
Yes.
Okay. If you guys, if you need to stop me, I won't be offended. Okay.
How long will the story be?
I'll read it really fast.
Because we're normally done 4 minutes from now and having
Okay.
done announcements.
Okay.
Raffle.
So I'll just wrap it up. If people want to stay, I can do it after, and that's fine. Or I can do this another time. Thank you for letting me to share a little bit. I love my topic. I love my content. I love how I can help the community doing this. and very happy to meet one-on-one, and I'd be happy and honored to serve your family in celebrations of love and life. And thank you for having me today.